Welcome to Business Minds. I'm your host, Cindy Byrd. I'm a business owner, a thinking partner, and an educator with a passion for helping businesses and individuals thrive. This is August, it's back to school time, so our theme for Business Minds this month is all about learning and development. And before I get into today's topic, I want to give a big shout out to all of my fellow educators out there, all of the teachers out there, no matter what level you teach, whether it's kindergarten, nursery school, elementary, high school, college, and beyond. It's such a valuable and rewarding career, and it's a lot of work for those teachers out there. I want to especially give a shout out to my daughter, Angie Uftring, who teaches fifth grade science at Central Grade School in Washington. 20 years, I think 21 years, she's going on being a science teacher. Kudos to her and all of the other teachers out there. You know, it's that excitement that we feel as teachers starting a fresh school year, starting with a new group of students in the classroom. And for me, I remember that time of year. It was just exciting to get the new school supplies. And even my granddaughter had me out shopping for school supplies with her back in July. She was still anxious to go and do that. But what's changed over time is not just the supplies that we need. You know, it used to be you needed your sharpened number 2 pencils, your ruler, your glue, your construction paper to make paper chains. You needed your Kleenex in your desk, maybe some pipe cleaners, a calculator a little bit later on. But what's really impacting the business world is that not only the methodology and the supplies that are used in how we learn has changed and evolved, but what people are needing to learn has also evolved. So there are 4 learning trends that I want to share with you today, and these come in part from Rhea O'Donnell, who writes for HR Dive. You can check that out at hrdive.com. These are actually trends that she looked ahead to looking into 2018, and some of them you'll recognize and maybe some you hadn't really thought about before. So there are 4 I want to share with you, as I mentioned, and the first one is niche learning or niche learning, however you prefer to announce that or pronounce that. So what does that mean? Well, in the business world in general, there are always going to be emerging trends and maybe even totally new industries coming about because of trends that occur. And there are 2 that she cites in this article, actually 3. And the first is the emerging cannabis industry. And she talks about the legal marijuana growing industry. Storefronts are popping up, growing facilities are cropping up all over. So growers, chemists, even retail employees are needing a new type of training. It's critical to an emerging industry that's going to be creating, as she says, about 250,000 jobs by 2020. Lots of new vendors. It's critical to be successful. I talked a couple weeks ago about how important ongoing learning and development is to making sure that you're displaying and demonstrating competence to your customers. So another one she cites is brewmaster training. It's a new discipline that's on the rise, barely keeping up with demand, she says. So both in-person and online courses, the industry is trying to train the next wave of brewmasters. So it's not just brewing, it's safety, it's regulatory requirements, and how to just run the business in general. And in specific, another installment on HR Dive talked about what's happening in Virginia. So the breweries in Virginia will need hundreds of trained workers each year, and local colleges may be the solution. So it talks about several universities, including Virginia Tech, the University of Richmond, and Piedmont Virginia Community College. They've all created on-site brewery programs that teach the brewery technology. So it's allowing the future employers of those brewmasters to get a head start with these programs that are cropping up at the college level. The third niche industry that's requiring some niche learning that she cites in her article is cybersecurity jobs. 1.8 million cybersecurity jobs are projected by 2022, and she says the majority of them are going to go unfilled. So stakeholders who need employees in that space are getting creative, and she talks about some specific boot camp learning, some immersion training that they're using in that field, because they're going to need coders, they're going to need cybersecurity experts, and more. And I mean, that's important to all of us, because as we see, unfortunately, more and more crime in the cyberspace, we need more and more cybersecurity experts. One university that's helping to address that shortage is the University of Phoenix, getting a jump on that. The second learning trend that she talks about is training distributed teams. Well, we all know that a lot of companies, as they grow geographically dispersed, their teams are separated from one another. That's not really something new. I mean, a lot of businesses have multiple locations across the United States, across the world, and so forth. But it is important to recognize that that separation means working a little harder to make sure everyone's trained and on the same page. So the learning trend that goes along with that is virtual academies. So offering live instructor-led courses in a virtual space is really what she's talking about here. This doesn't mean webinars only. This doesn't mean online courses. Those have been around for a long time. These are actually instructor-led courses in a virtual environment. And very important to companies because they want that highly immersive learning experience that comes along with that. The richness of being able to interact with a live instructor to receive some coaching in the moment. All of that very, very important to them. The third one I don't think is going to come as any surprise to you when you think about learning trends, because we've got a lot of great examples here locally, and I'm going to also share with you one more in depth that maybe might surprise you a little bit. But the third trend is ultra high-tech virtual reality and augmented reality, VR and AR as we know them. More and more companies and one that I'm going to share with you that's surprising, we'll talk about in a moment, but more and more companies are using this. We've seen this a lot in the healthcare field. Here locally, we have the Jump Trading Center where they simulate actual surgeries. They simulate so many instances in healthcare. There was a wonderful article in the paper not too long ago about the nursing program, the EMT programs at Illinois Central College using simulations where they actually have mannequins, whether it's an adult or a child or an infant, that mimic diseases. And with technology exploding, there's so much more that can be done with that. Simulations have been around for a long, long time, and computerized simulations online, they've just kicked up a number of notches because we've got this wonderful VR and AR technology that can go along with it. They talk about a medical center at the University of Nebraska taking training to the cutting edge with this simulation facility. Again, shout out to right here in Peoria, we've got the Jump Training Center. I know CSE Software, company based here in Peoria, specializes in creating simulated programs. They've done a lot of work with Caterpillar. I used to take my business students there on a field trip so they could see the actual simulators. They could sit in one and actually get the feel for what it would be like to drive one of those big mining trucks. Imagine you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars invested in that kind of equipment. You can train somebody in a simulated environment to learn how to drive that vehicle and man that vehicle before you actually put them out in the field. So there's a lot of advantages to that. But the one that really caught my eye was the one that she talked about with KFC, as we've known it for years, Kentucky Fried Chicken. But this is really an interesting article. So they have decided to use a virtual world to train their cooks in what they call the hard way. So the hard way is what Colonel Sanders called the way that his chicken is made, his famous fried chicken. He invented this more than 70 years ago. So I'm going to read some excerpts from this article for you. In 1940, the colonel was just one man frying chicken by hand. Now we have nearly 19,000 trained cooks across the U.S., but they're still doing it by hand. Our cooking process hasn't changed much in 70 years, but the way we can train our cooks using modern technology sure has. So, first of all, participants complete 5 main steps: inspecting, rinsing, breading, racking, and pressure frying. Then they exit the secret training kitchen with a high level glimpse of what goes into cooking the original recipe chicken. This is a process that takes 25 minutes from start to service if you're in the restaurant. In the virtual world, though, the game that they use uses the magic of modern technology, such as time lapse, to provide participants with a 10-minute demonstration of the cooking process. So they use virtual reality simulation to supplement what they do with in-person employee training still. The whole program's called the Chicken Mastery Certification, which provides detailed e-learning and hands-on training for cooks. But what was really interesting, how do they put that virtual reality into play, is they use an escape room. They have playfully designed it. They use gaming mechanics to make it really interactive, and this escape room concept. They have mini games, they have surprises, they have the colonel who they get to interact with. He controls the entire experience. So it's fun, it's interactive, it's an add-on to the brand's training program. So pretty interesting. It builds on the training and everything else that they've put into the overall employee development experience, but it's something, as they say, that's immersive, it's entertaining, and it connects the trainees directly with the founder of KFC. And here locally in Peoria, there are, I think, several escape room options. I'm going to give a shout out to Escape 60, which is owned and operated by my colleague, Michelle Rowland, and her husband. And they're getting great business. I know a lot of companies are already using the escape room as a team building, learning opportunity. And I would encourage you, if you do go to Escape 60, you have the added bonus that Michelle is an educator. She knows how to bring your team together and process the activity afterwards. That's invaluable. It's great to have them go through the escape room experience, but to have them come back and actually process what happened and have some real rich learning from it is great too. The last trend I want to share with you is upskilling. Because there's such a talent shortage out there, it's a real talent shortage. A lot of companies are not willing to wait for colleges and universities to necessarily step in and fill the gap or look for other resources to fill the gap. They're creating their own schools, their own universities now to train their employees. Of course, we know about Hamburger University. McDonald's has, it's been around forever. Walmart has Walmart University. But it's these talent gaps that's causing employers to get much more involved in training a new generation of workers, all the way back into the elementary school level. And I know a lot of chambers will partner with their school districts. I'm sure that's happening here in Peoria. I know it's happening in McLean County. Whatever employers can do to fill those gaps is really important. There was a great article in today's Journal Star about a partnership between Illinois Central College and employers needing individuals in ag, construction, trucking, and diesel technology. So check out that article as well. So the field of learning and development continues to evolve both in what people are learning and both in how they're learning. It's way beyond just those simple supplies that we get started with in school, and technology, of course, has a big role in that. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about these 4 trends in learning and development. I look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of Business Minds. Have a great day.
PeoriaLife.com